What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Coach Joe Strong, here to bring you another powerful episode of the Business of Strength podcast, where you can hear the tips, tools, and interviews to turn your passion for strength into a profitable business you will love. Our next guest is none other than my good friend, Jeremy Hartman. Jeremy Hartman from Hartman Performance. And he was here for the Underground Strength Con, and man, did he bring the house down. We had such a great time training with Jeremy. He's the 2023, 2024 coach, athlete, national coach of the year. He's coach to athlete of the year. He's a six-time powerlifting champion. He's working with a ton of high-level athletes and powerlifters and individuals from his area in Indiana. He's in Bagger Bargersville, I believe it's called Bargersville, Indiana. And man, he brought the house down. He gave such an empowering speech on how to be a great trainer, great coach, what great coaching looks like, how to coach and cue effectively and properly with energy and enthusiasm. And then he took everybody through a workshop, and it was fantastic. You got people moving. People were really pumped about it, and I wanted to have him on the podcast ever since Underground Strength Con last November. So we finally got a chance to sit down and talk and kind of pick his brain a little bit on, his career, his path, what makes great training great. What are some of the things that he's doing with his athletes and what he looks for, striving for excellence, and how he builds out, world-class training programs and puts a world-class training product on the gym floor each and every day. And you're going to learn a ton from this. I mean, Jeremy, like I said, gave a great talk, brought the house down, gave so many golden nuggets here. This was a great episode for the technical side of the business, which is obviously the product side, super, super important. So, Jerry talks a lot about, building his planning, building his program, how he coaches his coaches, what he's looking for in developing other staff members, and what some of the common denominators are with champions that he's trained, and the perception of what they do, and, how they go about their business and things, and what he looks for in a champion, and how some of that translates to your employees and so forth, and just the culture that you're building within your facilities. So this is an awesome one. Definitely check this out. Check out Jeremy at Hartman Performance on Instagram, and we'll put the links in the show notes for this one, and you'll definitely get a lot out of this. But make sure you hit Jeremy up and see what he's got going on out there in Indiana. Jeremy Hartman, Hartman Performance. This is the business of strength. Let's rip it. All right, I'm here with my good friend Jeremy Hartman. We are really excited to speak to you, brother. I haven't seen you since the Underground. Jeremy was one of the speakers at our Underground Strength Con back in November, and he brought the house down, man. And he had everybody on their feet. He had people training. He was, super dynamic, and I thought really delivered an awesome, empowering, talk about, being a great coach, some of the necessary tools and tactics that you need to be a great coach. And then again, like a lot of these seminars we were just chatting about, is like you're sitting around a lot, you're kind of hanging out, and you kind of, I don't want to say the energy was, the Underground was popping, right? But like, you're sitting there for 2 hours, listening to two or three talks in a row, you start to get glazed over a little bit. You start to see people. So Jeremy had everybody on their feet, training and moving, and got the crowd pumped up. We blasting some music, and I think that brought the life back. You know what I mean? And you kind of got things going. So thanks for taking an hour to come chat with us, man. Catch up since the Underground.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be on here, man. You had a great presentation yourself, something I've looked into even more and actually used, which we'll get into. That's how it's helped my business. But yeah, Underground Strength Con was amazing. I tell you what, no matter what level you're at, I don't care if you're a trainer, business owner, getting into sales, getting into the marketing part, wanting to learn. I mean, it literally encompassed everything. I told a bunch of my friends out here, gym owners, like, hey, I don't care what level you're at, like you were going to walk away with this. And even my assistant coach that I brought out there too, he was just blown away by what you guys have put together, the professionalism. Like we would have paid 100% and, gone every single year the way that turned out with everything. We came back with so much just on our own, and we were speakers there. So great job
Thank you
putting
so
all that
much, man.
together.
I really appreciate that. And it was awesome having everybody. I mean, honestly, that was one of the best. And I'm not like patting myself on the back. I don't want people listening and be like, this guy's such a douche. You know? Yeah. He's like, he just accolading himself. But it's like, I honestly think that that was one of the best, like, strength seminars that I've ever been to as a spectator. I
Yeah.
learned so much from you. I learned so much. I mean, how awesome were Chris and Andrea Smith? I mean, those guys were unbelievable. Chris and Andrea were great. Z is always awesome. He always brings the energy. So we just had
Yeah.
a great community, and it's like you bring a whole bunch of awesome people together under one roof. We're sharing, learning, growing, and helping each other, lift each other up. And I thought the energy was fantastic. I thought everybody was the sponsors were super great too. So we had a great time. But let's talk a little bit more about you, man. Like since the underground, going back, obviously you're in the gym game, Hartman Performance, right? You're training a ton of athletes, high level athletes from a variety of sports. Tell
Mhm.
me what the business looks like right now as a whole. What is Hartman Performance? What's the primary demographic? And as we made the transition, obviously from the last time I saw you in November through the new year, it's always a big time in the off season, in the wintertime for athletes to train and retooling for the new year. What does the business look like? What are we working on right now? What's hitting hard? And how are things going at Hartman Performance?
Yeah, it's going great. I mean, we primarily specialize in, athletes. I've got elementary, middle, high school, college, professional guys. I was at the Olympic trials this past year with one of my wrestlers too. We got the competitive powerlifting team. Actually, while I was speaking there, I had two lifters that were competing over in Reykjavik, Iceland. One ended up
Wow.
taking second in the world at heavyweight. Just missed 1,014 squat. He was actually squatting when I was speaking, so it was kind of funny how that was going on. But yeah, took second in the world. He qualified for the World Games, so he's going to go to China later on this year. He's going to compete in August.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so he's going to be. We're going to get some redemption out there. He's the squat 1,003 at 275 body weight. Uh,
Holy shit.
yeah, Jared's my boy. Yeah, pulled over 800 on a stiff bar. No bendy bars,
Wow.
anything like that. So
And now, and again, excuse me
yeah,
for being ignorant, Jeremy, but like I know back in the day, and it's been a long time since I've really like studied and immersed myself in the powerlifting world like it was a decade ago for me, where I thought that, like everything was like the whole world was West Side and elite and stuff like that. But
yeah,
are there are from I was just out at West Side not too long ago, and Tom and the guys out there said a lot of it's going towards less gear, wraps, things like that. Are there still like geared events where the people are wearing like all the heavy squat suits, bench suits, stuff like that, or are we going more towards like where I see like USA powerlifting, where it's pretty much just like wraps, belts, stuff like that?
yeah. It's mostly raw, which is just knee sleeves, belt, wrist wraps, singlet. That's about it. And then I got single ply lifters, which is just the basics. It's just the squat suit, knee wraps. That's it. Not the multiply layers. That's kind of died out. CrossFit is
Yep.
a big part of that, but you're seeing guys at these raw nationals. There's over 1,000 people in attendance, and they keep raising the qualifying totals every single year.
Wow.
These things are going. The college nationals has been over 1,000. I mean, it's
Yep.
crazy over several
A
days.
thousand. So I mean, because when I think of
Yeah,
1,000 pound squat, like if you're, I mean, you got to be a fucking crazy motherfucker to put 1,000 pounds on your spine. Like you're
yeah,
you are you are A, strong as shit. Like that's a given. But B, anybody I know who's willing to throw, and I've seen a few guys like squat 800 to 1,000, like back in the day out at West Side, stuff like that. And
yeah,
they were all a little touched. so, so the squat 1,000 pounds takes, but it takes a lot of effort, but it also takes a team, right? Because it is dangerous, right? So like, talk to me a little bit about that. Like like I know you were a big power lifter, national champion power lifter.
mm.
Um, Tell me a little bit about the powerlifting team and kind of how that started. Is that a revenue generator for your business, or is that more of a passion project for guys, local guys who are, competitive powerlifters, or just a way for you to give back to that powerlifting community that you love so much?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. It started
A little
off
bit of
as
everything.
I was done competing and everything. I got in the worlds, got in the world games. Was a gold medalist in the deadlifted 782 at 218 body weight.
Wow.
Bronze medalist in the bench 523 at 218. And when my competitive career was done, I was really focused on coaching, had a strength coach job, and then just slowly started. The school I was at, they brought me in to really build up the athletics. And
Hmm.
one thing I want to do is show these programs that hey, we can win with these kids. So I had kids that were coming in on the optional days, the optional Saturday mornings, the
Yep.
optional stuff that I had going on, and so I started taking them some local meets, and I took them to nationals, and I had a talk with them like, hey, if we're going to do this, this is how it really is. And I built my team up from there at first. And then slowly Joe kind of became a business. And then I started building more people up. And then other people started asking, they started seeing what was going on. They were asking for training that turned into, like a training business. And then
Yep.
people asked for distance. They're like, hey, online, like, hey, we see you at these national meets. How can we train with you? Reached out to some friends, brought the whole online business, started working with that, with everything. So now it's a full blown business, the whole powerlifting team, where I've got in person training. I've got hybrid where people do sometimes online, or if they can make it in, every so often, depends on distance. And then I
Yep.
have the just the distance people, some people in different countries right now that are training. But I've got athletes, I've got competitive lifters. I've got one guy, we're training him for Ranger School right now. I had my Olympic trials Greco-Roman athlete too, national champion in Greco-Roman.
That's cool.
Yeah, so he would be able to fly in. Rich could only come in every couple months because he had to be at the Olympic Training Center. They were flying him out to train, internationally or compete internationally. So it's kind of built itself into the business out. So most of the stuff I have is kind of in person or online or a hybrid right now with the business model.
Oh, that's awesome. Do so you do for the people that are remote, you do it on a
Mhm.
digital platform using like a Train Heroic or a Team Builder or something like that to do those?
Yeah, well, I use my own platform. I started using that, and I wanted to simplify it. I think as you and I have gotten as coaches, one thing we've done with our programs and everything else is we've simplified it, and it's been so
Yeah.
much better. So yeah, I've simplified it. I got a whole community on a private Facebook page for everybody, private social media stuff that they use, private workouts and stuff that I have. So it's something I kind of built up over my time that people wanted something simpler, and I was like, let's just stick with this, and everyone's still getting great results. So I just created my own. We've been working with that.
That's fantastic. I love that, man. We just had a great, we wrapped up a sales summit about a week ago, and one of our mastermind members owns an all girls athlete gym out in Pennsylvania called Relentless Athletic. Her name's Emily Knepp. Really sharp entrepreneur. Got really into Olympic lifting as a way to just get strong. She never played really any sports and just found her way in Olympic weightlifting. Got really into it. Started coaching Olympic weightlifting. Wound up getting like a PhD and like spending a lot of time in college coaching the Olympic weightlifting team. And my point is that there's value in niching, right? Like obviously you are a world class powerlifter, so there's a tremendous amount of passion and a pile of accolades to go behind it. And then a lot of people would say like, oh, you got to diversify. You got to have different buckets. You got to do, you need adults. You can't run a business with just athletes, right? You got to have adults during the day. And even I fell prey to that sometimes where it was like, I got this space open from 6 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. It's like, I got to do something with it, right?
Yeah,
And she proved me wrong. I mean, she gave a talk. Her business is killing it, like absolutely killing it. And what I think is the message, you got the right person with the right message and the right avatar, and it's like a frenzy, right? And the same thing here. It's like you got the right person with the right message and ability, right? And the right avatar. And it's like you could build something special in that powerlifting niche, even though like a lot of people would say like that's not like a big money niche, like a big lucre. Like there's way more money in, you know, busy 40 to 60-year-old moms and dads than there is in
yeah,
powerlifting, right?
yeah.
But I don't know if you would have the same passion for that, right? I mean, not that you don't want to, it couldn't help people, but it's still the same. So that's awesome. Talk to me about your athlete program, man. So I know you got one of the top athlete training facilities that I know of. And one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you out to the underground was because you work with so many high level athletes. Talk to me a little bit about that. Do you work with any Gen Pop at all, or is it primary athletes? And what does that look like from the business perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a high level athletes, but I do still have some Gen Pop that comes in. I have some adult fitness that comes in, but we focus on strength training. That's why I tell them
Yep.
there's not anything fancy we're doing here. We're focused on the basics. I'm going to get you guys stronger. So everybody's in there. So even though some of my athletes are training around some of my like adults that are in there, everybody's training to get better. Everybody's training to get stronger. They know what my focus is. We're not on treadmills. We're not doing all this other stuff. We're focusing on strength training. That's what I'm probably there. So I've had people come in. I've got retired state troopers that come in. I've had some retired teachers that have come in, some firemen that come in, but they're all in there for the same reason. They're all either to get better at something, they're all striving for something. Everyone's trying to get everybody better. So you see athletes cheer on my adults, you see my adults like cheer on these kids. So it's kind of a neat culture that I've been able to build over here.
That's amazing. That was always one of the things that I think a lot of our adults, I mean, the business has gone a lot further in a different direction, but like, I mean, we used to have we still, you see our gym, it's all barbells, dumbbells, and weights, right? It's not there's no cardio deck, right?
Yeah,
Everybody's lifting. I don't care if you're
yep,
7 years old or you're 70 years old, you're lifting something, right? You're
yep.
carrying. some type of resistance, and we're gonna get fucking strong, right? And that's it. I mean, if I can get that 65-year-old woman to be able to carry, 3 bags of groceries in her hands down 2 flights of stairs to her apartment or something like that. Like to me, that's a giant win, right? Or for yourself with the high level athletes, if I can get that track athlete to shave, 2-3 tenths of a second off their 100 meter or 200 meter and so forth, like that's a win, right?
Yeah.
In the business side of things, like talk to me about like your attraction piece, like your marketing and so forth, like that. You've carved out a niche for training high level athletes, and you've attracted, like you said, like state champions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we always hang our hat on word of mouth, but what else are we doing? What does marketing look like to athletes from your business?
Yeah, grassroots marketing, word of mouth. I think, Joe, when you treat people right and you get them results and you go above and beyond, like you'll see me show up at my athletes' events and I'll meet people over there and parents will come up like, hey, I've been meaning to talk to you, or hey, you train so and so. We've seen their transformation. So it's just when I show up to these events and I see these parents around, especially at the high school, they're like, hey, we've been meaning to touch base, or hey, we want to talk to you. The season's coming to an end. So that's just something that kind of, grassroots on that
Sure.
part. One thing you inspired me was after we came out to Underground Strength Con is you're like, hey, what about in the area? You're like, Jeremy, what about you got businesses all around you? How many of the owners do you know? I'm like, well, I know a few, and you're like, you're touching base on digital marketing, all this other stuff, and you're
Yeah.
just like I would with training, Joe. You told me start with the basics, so I went around, met all my business people out here,
Awesome.
my state troopers that were here. Gave them, offered some free workouts for some of the guys that come in and do that. Same thing. I had a fireman I was training. Simple as that. Stop by the station, drop that out. All of a sudden I had, holy cow, 5, 6, 7. I had, there's over 10 more people just from simple stuff like that. Just like you said, just look in your area. It's right in
Yeah.
front of you. You don't have to do all this other stuff. You're at this high level with what you were doing. But you told me, hey, just start with the basics. Just like if somebody came in looking for lifting, I would start them with the basics. And they're going to get so much better. So just in my local area, that was some stuff you inspired me. All of a sudden, I got these people coming in. Indiana University, I was actually down there training, and I got the actual throws coach, is the head throws coach and the track coach. He actually comes up for me for strength training right now too.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, there was a girl who's an Olympian, Mary Thisman. She's been training a little bit. I've gotten to show her some bench and some stuff, and she's an Olympic weightlifter. She took 50 Olympics. So it's just amazing when you
Wow.
told me, look around you. There's the opportunities everywhere. Drop your business card off, offer this, stop in and meet people, talk to your people right there. And all of a sudden, I got almost a dozen people just off simple stuff that I haven't even tried. So it's
That's
amazing.
great. I love that. I mean, look, before I tell everybody, before you ever decide, it's so easy today to throw money at Facebook. And trust me, Zook does not need any more fucking money, right? You don't need, he's got enough, right?
Yep.
And now he pulls a 180-degree about face because, a new regime's coming in. He's like, ah, shit, I'm on the other side of the table. I got to get on the good side now. So, you know,
Yeah.
keep politics out of this podcast. But
Yeah.
my point is that, it's so easy to throw money at Facebook and forget about stuff. Remember, we're in the relationship business. We're not in the digital ads business, right?
Yeah.
And even though technically we're selling a product and that product is training, fitness, strength, whatever you want to call it, it is so different than selling a fresh new iPhone, right? When new iPhone 15 or 16 or whatever it is comes out, everybody clamors, they get excited, new features, let me go buy that, let me go put that on my account. They don't realize, they forget that it's $1,200 that they add to your account, amortized over
Yeah.
24 payments, right? And stuff like that,
Yep.
whatever it is, right? And people just drop a G on it because they want the flashy new cool phone that does cool shit, right? It's got a better camera, whatever, right? Strength training, whether it's athletes or adults, right? It comes with all this stuff. And that stuff is hard work, consistency, commitment, habit change, showing up, right? I still haven't found a better way to build long lasting client relations in the realm of fitness and strength more than going out and shaking hands and kissing babies. You got to be, if you're mayor in town, if the fire chief or the police chief doesn't know who you are, in my opinion, the base of your marketing pyramid is on like a deck of cards. It's on that house of cards, and it's about to crumble because like you said, if you don't know the high school coaches, you don't know who's the head of the rec program in your town. Like those are the people you need to make relationships with. If digital ads is great, it's a tool, right? But
Mhm.
it doesn't get somebody to say, you know what, man, that guy Jeremy, he shows up to every freaking wrestling meet, every kid's practice. He's always around. He's always helping the kids. I see the kids running from the field over to the fence to talk to him about something, you know what I mean? And it's
Yep.
like you could see that bond and connection. And I think like me and Dan did exactly the same thing. For a decade, it was Dan and Joe were at just about every football game in northern Bergen County in northern Jersey. Every Friday and Saturday we were out, hobnobbing, and part of it was because we didn't have any money for marketing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the other part of it was because we knew that if you want to get to the kids, they got to trust you. You got to win them over. And like you said, once you get that one kid who's like, wins a state title, transforms their body, all of a sudden you got like a line out the door, of kids. Who are some of like, without obviously, keeping kids anonymity on the podcast, but like give me an idea of like what's your biggest demographic of athletes? Is it football, wrestling, track? Like those seem to be the ones that are most inclined towards strength training. And then
Yeah.
what does the rest of it look like?
Yeah, I would say football and track and field. I think those have been the ones that I've had the most real good success with. Obviously with my wrestling background too, I got a pretty good level on mine. So I've had real good success with that. You got several guys at D1, you had several state champions from the local area coming right out of here. I got a kid that's been training me for 6 years, and he was, average at best, and the kid's built himself up, just on a great Division I scholarship. We're ranked,
Sick.
top 3 in the state this year. Yeah. My track and field, my jumpers, I've had a triple jump NAI collegiate national champion in here, All-American high jumper. She was All American long jumper. Then I just had one as a true freshman. She was a state placer for me in high school, and then she got a great scholarship to Marion University. And then she goes in there. We're ranked 20th, and then we're ranked 15th, and then we're ranked 12th, and she's ranked 8th. And then all of a sudden we go to college nationals, and she ends up being 4th, NAI All American at college her first year as a true freshman. So I think the wrestling, the track and field has been that. I've had some football players come through here too. A lot of the programs around me have a lot of strength coaches, so the kids are coming in, twice, maybe 3 times a week, depending on their schedule. But I would say those events have been just where I've had some great success. And that's what I've kind of really, really attracted. Some hurdlers have come in here, done real well too on that part. A lot of throwers lately too. I've had a lot of good female
Hmm.
throwers coming in who are going to be state placers and state qualifiers this year. So that's been a big part. Volleyball players, got a couple girls playing D1 volleyball right now. Same thing on that, keeping them healthy, stronger. It's amazing what they get done and what they're able to keep done during the season and how they feel at the end. Where other girls
Sure.
start dying out, Joe, their shoulders are hurting. All these other girls are wrapped up with ice, and my girls are like, I'm done with practice. I can go home. I have to sit in a trainer's room and wrap
That's great.
myself up. Yeah.
I mean, muscle strength, tissue elasticity, is resiliency, right? So, like, when you bend awkwardly, absorbing force, whether it's with the ground, like a volleyball. I trained a lot of volleyball players back in the day, some really high level. I was lucky enough that one of my first very long term, like very close clients was a little girl named Sandra, and her two older sisters and her all went to college to play volleyball, and they were all like fantastic, like high level, like all American, academic all Americans, like really good athletes. And I trained the shit out of them and a whole lot of their friends, and they were on like, a bunch of those travel teams and stuff like that. And I think one of the biggest injuries that I saw, obviously the way the positioning for volleyball with your knees tucked in and you're in that like kind of bent over squat position for digging and stuff like that and diving on the hard courts, right?
Yep.
These girls are, if you're a setter especially, you're like diving on the floor all the time, right? And a lot of back injuries. So, same we noticed the same thing after about a year of training consistently. They just didn't get hurt no more. And like the girls around them were falling apart like, like literally like falling apart like old toys. And that's really where the resiliency came in there. I think like what's your take on female athletes nowadays? We're seeing a huge uptick in female athletes interested in strength and conditioning, especially in some of those non-typical sports like wrestling. Is female wrestling growing as much by you as it is here? I see a lot of girls in the junior. My son's in the junior program here, so it's all like 5 to 12-year olds. That junior program. And man,
Yeah.
when I go to a meets, I'm going to say every single mat has a couple women on it now, a couple girls on it now. What
Yeah.
say you?
Yeah, no, it's actually picked up. I've had some more actually female wrestlers now sign up with me, some younger ones and some high school ones. Yeah, I think it's one of the fastest growing sports around there. and they're quickly learning that, whether they have to wrestle guys, which a lot of them have to practice and stuff like that, or
Sure.
they're having to wrestle girls, depending on what state you're in and what they have going on. Like, they have got to physically just get stronger. It's
Yeah.
not rocket science with them. We don't need sport specific. So yeah, starting to track more. It's like, okay, parents are seeing that. Okay, like, hey, this is awesome. My kid's wrestling. Hey, my girls are doing this. But hey, what's going on? Hey, they're getting thrown around, or hey, they're just not strong enough. So now they're signing up more and more. And I'm seeing a little bit more of those athletes coming through. Just with a strength trainer, parents more kind of interested in, or hey, how does this work? How do I get my daughter? Hey, is it, just question and stuff. So it's in a good situation over here. I think the other
Sure.
sports are done too. I've got some lacrosse athletes that are here. I got a girl playing in college right now in Connecticut. Strength training was a big thing for her. I was just talking about volleyball players. Joe, there's a huge epidemic, and it's an epidemic with soccer, basketball, volleyball, torn ACLs with females all
Yes.
over the place. It drives me nuts. And I had a girl, she
Crazy.
actually had a partially pulled meniscus. It wasn't torn or anything. And her doctor said, he goes, hey, he goes, how strong you are. He goes, if you were just another girl coming in here, when I run my athletes, he goes, we would have probably had a torn ACL, torn MCL. He goes, who knows what with your knee. He goes, we just got to be off this for like 3 or 4 weeks, work with your trainer and stuff, take some breaks on this stuff. And then we had to modify some training stuff. And then she was back to good after that, where he said, plain told her, had you not been strong enough, you would have been out for what, 6 months plus for a year. This would have affected probably her scholarship and everything. But the girls that are seeing that, and when messages like that are happening, parents are actually seeing like, hey, she had a small thing, but hey, this could have been way worse. That is something huge that I think is still behind right now. I think
Hmm.
parents at our level and females are still kind of catching up, but there's a big epidemic about that.
Oh, massive, man. I've had so many female ACLs. The comparison here as a gym over the last, since I started in '06, so 18 years.
Yeah.
If I had half of the brain that I have now, I would have kept track of all these things. But
Yeah.
if I had a list of all the females and all the males that I've had who've been injured, the female list would be 10x what the male list is.
Yep.
And it's primarily just because of obviously testosterone and muscle mass, right? Men generally, boys, in that, high school, middle school to high school age have a lot more muscle mass and are more resilient. And what weight training does, and something, you could talk probably a lot better on than I can at this point, is force absorption, right? I mean, strength training teaches, builds, tremendous tendinous and ligamental strength, but especially Olympic lifts, ballistic throws, jumps, if you're doing those things in your training on a regular basis, it's building force absorption, and your body is like it's a learning mechanism. It's a giant AI, computer, and it memorizes movement over the entire course of your life. And force absorption is a huge component of athletic sports, right? And now you have a girl who's a very good soccer player, and that the force of acceleration and power and speed only goes up as the level of play goes up. And you had this really good skill player who maybe doesn't have the physicality. She finally gets to the varsity level, starts playing some real high competition, and the forces and the cutting and the moving and she, goes up, but she doesn't have the physicality, and that's when you start to see these injuries really, creep up. What are some of the
Yeah.
things on the business side, Jeremy? You mentioned you're keeping a lot of players in season, right? And that's really helping them maintain or even improve their strength
Yep.
during the season. From the business side, how are you conveying that message? Because if I pulled all of the gyms, including ours, and all the gyms that are in our business mastermind that we've worked with through the business of strength that train athletes, I would say one of the biggest roadblocks is, athletes who come for an off season, maybe two training blocks. Let's say they're a fall and spring sport athlete, and they'll train summer and winter, but not during the seasons. And we both know that that's not the best way to do it. How are you conveying the message that you got to train year round, that you need to train in season from a business and or messaging perspective?
Yeah, two things. We'll start with honestly the grassroots communication. So, like that one girl I told you, volleyball player who could have been a lot worse. Like, she talked to some of the younger athletes. I had her state and talk to some of the parents because she's a college athlete, Division 1 now. And I told have them tell about when you weren't training during the season, what happened. Oh, I felt worse. My first step quickness was off. My jumps just didn't feel good. My shoulder started aching me at the end of the season. So I never made that mistake again. I made sure I was coming in here once, if not twice a week. minimum, depending on my playing schedule when I could, Chris's breaks and stuff like that. Same thing, my wrestlers, they're in here even more. I got my one kid who's trained to be a state champion. This week he's in here 4 times. He goes, hey, I don't have a match this week. We're just practicing before sectionals really starts here in the next couple of weeks. So he goes, hey, I'm going to be in here during this time. So I've had those kids tell some of the other kids. When I've had parents pick up other kids, I have them, hey, would you mind talking about so-and-so on this part? And then the next thing, I'll give it another piece of advice you gave me. My Instagram could get shut down tomorrow. My Facebook page could get shut down tomorrow. Something could happen. So with all those email addresses I have with everything, when I see a cool article or something like that, Joe, I will send that out, in addition to, like just a small little newsletter to my people that are here. Hey, here's a great article about this, or hey, here's something about in season. So it's just little bits of communication here and there. Because that way, if my social media does get shut down, like you told me, hey, you got all these email addresses, those aren't going
Yeah.
away, those are yours. So I think
Yeah.
just putting that together and putting some more information out there, that has helped my business side with communication. Like your parents, they're not going to read everything, but hey, I took a look at that article, or hey, that was kind of interesting, or hey, I clicked on this, we kind of read that and kind of discussed it. Not everybody does that, but again, it was right
Yeah.
in front of me, and that could easily get shut down the other side. But I've got all these that are mine, so I got to use that as a better tool with everything.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think it's definitely a roadblock. I think a lot of parents like, it's unfortunate. Obviously, us being in the game of strength, have a little bit more of an understanding as to the importance of maintaining strength. And I think like a young kid, if you're a 14, 15, 16-year-old high school boy or girl, you could maintain pretty good on 1 to 2 sessions a week in season,
Yeah,
if they're done right, right, and the quality. Not generally what I hate seeing, and this is another roadblock that we have here in Jersey because of the competition of just local gyms and stuff like that, is well, he wants to go train with his friends at the local like health club, at the whatever barbell, there's like
yeah,
a the what the hell's I don't even know what they're called anymore. I don't even know the names of those health clubs anymore. It's
yeah.
like, there's like a Lifetime, and then there's the what's the
Anytime
cheap one?
Fitness or
Planet
Crunch
Fitness. Yeah,
Fitness.
exactly.
Yeah,
Whatever. Crunch, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And they're like, oh, he wants to go train with his friends. I'm like, what is he doing in there? He's doing curls, right? And he's talking to chicks, and they're on their phone the entire goddamn time. Like,
Yep.
there's no work happening in there, like And so that's been like a roadblock of ours. But I think a lot of it's unfortunate that a lot of parents just see it as an economical thing too. Like, why am I going to pay for training? When they can only make it once or twice a week. I was like, I don't know, because you spent the last let's call it, 20 weeks training, and you invest all this time, energy, and money to get to a certain level of physical ability just to disappear for 4 months to go 2 steps backwards.
Yep.
So we try to same thing, emailing parents, educating parents. We're running a workshop in a couple weeks on in season strength and conditioning. And just like you said, we have a couple of our ex formerly injured athletes coming back to talk to the kids and the parents about their road to recovery, how important staying strong all year round was, how, believe it or not, like the one kid, James, like he PR'd in season in the middle of a football season. He was only training twice a week, right? I mean, he wound up blowing his ACL, coming back, getting a full scholarship, and now he's, getting ready for his pro day, right? So, that doesn't happen if you're taking 4 month clips off several times a year. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you just disappear. And like football and wrestling, if you didn't train during wrestling, you would lose so much weight from all the wrestling practice. Like you have to maintain those calories and the stimulus for muscle growth, in my
Yeah, so
opinion.
I think wrestlers are the worst. I mean, with all the weight loss they're doing, the
Oh,
practices are. Plus, these guys are training on top of it. Like those guys need the strength training more than anything else. And I think one thing at the end of the season, all of my wrestlers have said is that man, even like when they had tough competitions or maybe they suffered a loss or two earlier in the season, when it comes down to the end, all these other guys are resting, like you just said, taking the month off. Oh, it's sectional time. I'm like, are we peaking for sectionals or state for my high level athletes? And I've said this over
yeah,
and over again. And my
yeah,
guys, when they get to state, they go, I felt stronger. Yeah, I wrestled that kid earlier. It was a tough match before, but I felt physically dominant. And my guys say that over and over again. So when I have my athletes or parents that, hey, the season's going to start, we're going to get busy. I don't know if we can make it in. I have my good athletes come over and talk to them like, hey, tell them about the mistake you made. Tell them how much of a difference you feel. And that's been one thing to help educate them. And like you said, hey, well, he's got, lifting class, or hey, the wrestling team's going to work out like, twice a week. I'm like, it doesn't matter. He still needs to be here. I'm like, if you look at my state champion right now, Silas Stitz, the one going to Kent State University on Division I scholarship, he was there. We were there till 8:30 last night. He couldn't come in. He goes, Coach, I had this after practice. So I don't care. You and I have this. goal that we've been working on since sixth grade, man. It's been 6 years with you, brother. I said, I'll stay up here late. So I just ended up working out with him, but we get it in no
Awesome.
matter what. Yeah, it's still far from you. You're still educating. It's like, man, I don't understand how these people don't know this yet. But I guess I have those people tell their stories more often, and that
Sure.
helps parents and helps with the younger kids. So they just try to instill that over and over again.
Yeah, I think I mean my head's spinning on marketing, right? Because I think like maybe for you it would literally just be like doing some interviews with kids and like filming them and like using them as marketing videos
Yep.
to put out to the community and be like, hey, here's what some of our kids have to say about their road to recovery from injuries, in season training, how it's helped them keep an edge. I also think it's a mental edge, right? Because sports is such a mental game, especially for if it's even hard to conceptualize because I wasn't that guy in high school, but like if you're a high level like state championship wrestler at 16 years old, right? There's a lot of pressure at that age that a lot of kids don't even have the wherewithal to handle properly and understand what like opportunity they have in front of them, and also like how like locally like a lot of kids might look up to them and they have this opportunity to not only you know be great for themselves, but to showcase greatness to a bunch of little kids, maybe on the junior program that are looking up to this high school kid who's in the high school they're going to be going to, like, oh my God, this kid's an animal. Like we were very lucky that we had like Shane Griffith training with us for his whole for a kid. And Shane won a national championship
Oh
out in
yeah, I know you.
Stanford. Dude's a beast, right? Shane, and if Shane listens to this, I'm gonna ping him, tell him he made the podcast. But like, Shane was one of the hardest working dudes I ever met. But one thing that I noticed about Shane is that he always took the time, he always carried himself in a way that he thought other people would respect his work ethic, his effort, and the way he approached his business of being a high level wrestler. He was always great with the kids. He always talked to all the little kids. He always made sure that he did a lot of like the local wrestling clinics and stuff like that with the little kids and things. And I think like he understood the opportunity where a lot of people don't, and they think they just kind of they don't realize that there's this enormous pressure on them. It's tough for, I mean, I don't even know, because like at 15 years old being in that wrestling, there's no greater equalizer than wrestling, because wrestling, you got to, at the end of the day, what do you got to do? You got to go out on that mat all by yourself.
Yep.
Like I've had some really shitty games as a player in football that we won because somebody else killed it that day, and I just
Yeah.
had a shitty game, you know what I mean? But like that's football, right? It's a team sport. Where wrestling and track, your numbers are your numbers, and you either win or you lose. There's only one outcome on the mat, right? It's a
Yeah.
so
Well, Joe, I
and
had a great story, and actually, it's one of the ones I'm going to post on social media. I had a parent, Brooke, who's my All-American high jumper. Um, she came in; it was middle of her track season. Year before, she'd suffer a broken pelvis just from coming
oof,
over a hurdle. That's how weak she was.
no
And
shit.
yeah, I got connected again through some other track athletes that I was training at the collegiate and high school level, and she came in middle of the season. Rarely do I ever have an athlete, like you just said, start in the middle of a season. Usually, parents and everyone's like, "We'll just wait to the end of the season. We'll start after track season." Well, her jumps weren't going anywhere. She was getting injured again. Her mom said that was enough. Was enough. She was in my weight room the very next week, and I told her mom, I said, "Hey, we got about 8 weeks until like sectional start. I'm not going to promise you anything." And she goes, "Hey, stuff's not getting any better. If anything, it's declining." So we got her training. She could only squat, oh my gosh, 65 pounds the first day.
Jeez.
We were benching. She was benching what she could squat right around 65, and her shoulder hurt benching. We got her really well in 2 months. She wasn't even state ranked. Went out there, was in lane one. Okay, that's for the people. Hey, good luck. Everyone, the big people are in the middle lanes and everything. Went out there and qualified for 2 events in the state and wasn't even ranked with everything. But we got her stronger. We took care of those little nagging injuries that she was getting. She felt better. You just said about the mental side too. Like you said, hey,
Yeah.
track and field, like you're on your own here. And she was like huge on that part. So that was one thing that parents don't quite understand. I'll wait to the end of the season, or we'll pick it back up then. It's like, well, her parents could have done that. I guarantee you, Brooke even says it. Like, I never would have qualified for state. I never would have gotten maybe out of sectionals or regionals. But we started that the last 8 weeks, and she had a heck of a thing all the way through. So that's another podcast and social media thing I'm going to come out with, just so people actually understand that.
I think, obviously I always thought, I mean, training for me was a confidence booster, right? So like I started training, I had some family troubles, like my household wasn't the best, right? I had a single mom, stuff like that. I think I had like a lot of like bent up anger and stuff like that. So my mom put me in karate, right, when I was a little kid, right? That scratched the itch of being able to kick and punch shit, right? And get
Yeah.
that out. And then
Yep.
as I got a little older, I was playing sports and stuff like that. My mom got me this book behind me, the Arnold Schwarzenegger's Bodybuilding for Men, and a Joe Weider like incline, decline, squat rack bench set, right? And literally away I went for for the last 35 plus years, right?
Yep.
And I think for me, when I was training for sport and or when I was training to whatever it is, climb a mountain, if I'm training, like I'm doing some hairy mountain climbs this year as like my Misogi kind of like physical challenges. And like the confidence that I have to do it comes from the training. And because I put a training plan together. My first one's in the middle of March. I put a training plan together. I've been training my ass off. I got to build up my condition. I got to build up my GPP. I've been rucking with some heavy sacks. I'm squatting. I got to get my legs straight. I got to stay injury free. I got to make sure my ankle mobility is good. I got to make sure my knees feel great. So I'm putting a lot of knee, like no, like knees over toes protocol and like some stuff into my
Yeah.
workouts. And it's like I could look at that 12, 16 week training plan and say, like, I fucking did this thing. I did it. I'm ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it builds a lot of confidence. And you got these kids, what better way to build confidence than having mini wins all along the way, right? We talk about sales, right? We talked about sales a lot at the Underground Strength Con, but it's like you get a whole bunch of mini yeses, and at the end of that sales consult, hopefully you're like, hey, are we ready to do this? And they're like, yes, let's do it. Let's go. I'm ready to get fit and strong. And it's the same
Yeah.
thing with athletes. Like these kids that are training with you in season or preseason, it's like, hey man, let's catch a whole bunch of little wins along the way. Let's PR on a few things that I know we can hit. And it's like you're a good coach. So like me, it was like I made sure that the kids hit PRs. I made sure that they were in a winning position in the gym. And we very, very rarely, I think in the course of when I was coaching full time from before '06, but like but as a business, as varsity, I was from '06 to like 2018, 20 to like 2019 when I started to kind of like tail off the training, right? I think we maybe missed like five fucking lifts in the entire time. Like we don't miss lifts because we
Yeah.
picked the right lifts and we picked the right numbers and we just don't overreach. So if a kid's PR, let's say it's just say he's got a 305 bench and we're like, hey, we're gonna go to 310 and he smokes it. A lot of places, a lot of kids be like, let's go to 315 and we try for another one. It's like here we're done, right? It's like, no, man,
Yep.
that's great. It's a PR. We won this week. Let's win again next week, right? And you're constantly
Yep.
dangling that carrot out. How important is that from a business perspective when you're working with young kids to keep the momentum going, to keep the morale high? How do you factor in, like, what are some things that you do to keep the atmosphere, the morale, and the momentum going at Hartman?
Joe, you just named a bunch of it. By like you said, we can get athletes a little bit stronger by the end of the season. I hate to use the word maintenance. Business is growing or dying, a tree's growing or dying. I think it's the same thing. I try to get my athletes a little bit stronger because, like you said, if we have these little wins, when it comes time for sectionals, when it comes time for regionals, the county tournament, hey, do you remember where you're at? Hey, look at that PR. Even like you just said, it's a 5 pound PR. Hey, it's the end of the wrestling season. You've been cutting weight all year. You've been doing this. We
Yes.
have some setbacks. You just set an all-time PR and we're getting ready for sectionals. They're like, yeah, I can't believe I did that. Right there, they're going to walk out like, hey, my head's a little higher. My chest is stuck out a little bit more. I feel a little bit better. I am a little bit stronger. I did have setbacks. I did get thrown on my shoulder. This happened earlier. Yeah, we couldn't do this for a while, but now I'm back and I'm even better than before. Same thing with my
Yeah.
track athletes. My jumpers, when they put strength on their squat, their glute ham raises, lunges, Olympic lifts a little bit, man. I'm like, remember what you did? I'm like, how you feeling now? They're like, yeah, I'm feeling explosives. I'm feeling good. I'm like, yeah, you are a better product at the end of the season. And when you get that going, hey, so and so just hit this PR. Like, man, like he had a rough wrestling season. Man, she had this setback during track season, and everybody kind of sees. I'm like, yeah, they powered through it. We had to work around it. We trained around it. We did this instead of that. We did this instead of that. And then we're able to come back to it. And all of a sudden, like you said, that 305 turns to 310. Hey, look how much better you
Yeah.
are. It's the end of the season. Now I got a better product. Parents see that. Kids see that. Everybody's feeling good. Parents are saying about that, where other ones are like, well, I thought you should just maintain. No, my kids, look how good my kid did at the end of the season. He actually got a
Yeah.
little bit stronger with Hartman. And that word spreads and more people say about it.
That makes sense. And I mean, one of the things that I always tried to do, and I know Adam does a really good job with it now, is like if a kid's in season, right? We can find something to PR in. We can find a
Yep.
win somewhere, right? So it might not be like a high CNS stress lift like a deadlift or a squat, right? We might not PR in the squat, but maybe a weird variation of the squat that the kid's not like emotionally tied to. Maybe we're going to PR in a belt squat, over the course of an in season. Maybe
Yep.
we're going to PR in a grip challenge, right? If they're like a football player that doesn't like, again, like there's certain things that aren't going to detract from their football practice and their training and their ability to play a game, but we can find something that we can PR in. Again, it's probably not going to be like a prowler relay or something like that that's going to blow them to pieces, right? Or
Yeah,
like I said, like a high CNS stress. And, if they're a baseball player, it's definitely not going to be a PR in the bench press in season, right?
yeah,
But we could PR in something, right? And
yes.
so there's all these like little, like again, accessory lifts. And I always love to use like a lot of the variations of the main lift, squat, bench, and deadlift, because kids weren't emotionally tied to them, right? So like a belt squat, nobody gets up to the belt squat and be like, yeah, but I should be able to squat four. Like again, if you left the summer program squatting 400 pounds, right? And your expectation is that now that you can squat 405, and then like halfway through the football season, I put you on a bar and you can only squat 315. Like you're mentally, you're like, oh, I'm a pussy, I can't do it no more. Like I lost so much strength, right? And it is like, again, it's a mental game. But it's like if I throw them on the belt squat and they're still hitting 400 pounds on the belt squat in their head, they're still squatting 400 pounds, especially a 15-year-old. They don't fucking know their ass from their elbow,
Yeah,
right? It's like, oh, dude, you're still crushing 405. And it's like, yes, I'm still fucking strong, right? Meanwhile, I
yeah,
know I'm not loading their spine. They're still straining hard. They're still working hard, but they don't have that emotional tie. For me, it was like the cambered bar, or the Zercher squat, or something, or a buffalo bar. Like whenever I needed to get my head out of my ass, I would do a cycle with like a lot more chains or one of those awkward bars because I didn't have any emotional attachment to it. I'm just going to try and hit my best single, double, triple today, and whatever that is. I don't even give a shit because it's not like in my head. It wasn't like, I should be able to do this, right? You know what I mean? What are some
yeah.
other tactics, man? What's music like? This is kind of like a silly question, but like, what's music like at Hartman? Here, it's a fucking battle.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right. We'll go back to the accessory stuff. Like, I had kids that, maybe they didn't bench press their PR, but they were hitting chin up PRs and pull up PRs. That was something that the other night, or, hey, we're hitting a row PR or something, or, hey, we didn't get, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to push their squat, but hey, we ended up hitting lunges. They were just on point with that for the day, or, a clean variation, Olympic lift, something on there. So any of those little variations, again, you keep that, like you said, carried out in front of the kids, see, hey, okay, yeah, my bench might be down, but hey, look at all this progress I'm making on these other things. And I see that too. And I think it just builds tremendous confidence.
Sure.
Music wise, man, we're going to switch to that topic. Um, anything hardcore, man. I like that music going. I like, there's rap sometimes. It depends on the mood I'm in. There might be rap on there. There might be some of the same stuff. There might be Metallica. I think I'm going through my AC/DC phase right now. That's the kind of
I
stuff.
love ACD.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially when it's
Always.
just us in there training. Sometimes we have some other group classes with some CrossFit stuff because we split a gym over here. But when my kids are rocking and rolling that, but I think we're just really so focused on our side that my kids know, like, hey, you got to focus on this. We're so technical, and I'm so on point with everything. I think that's what sets my culture above. And I got a new girl right now. Megan told me she's come in from she's Indiana University's throws coach, and she has no idea. She just came in, Joe. She weighs 181, pulled 470 for three in front of me. Okay.
Holy shit.
Yeah, she hasn't benched in a couple months. She's repping out. We just worked her up to 225, and I'm still working on her technique on bench. Again, weighing 177 the other day when she came in. But she's another
Wow.
tone setter. Yeah, she trained with one of the best throws coaches of
Wow.
all time, Judd Logan, a four-time Olympian, and she came from
Holy
a great
smokes.
culture with hers. And she's like a game changer. Like, she comes in and even brings the culture up even more. Like, it's funny when
Yeah.
certain people come in, like how they can raise the expectation. But I think it still goes back to me, and I think it still goes back every single day. I'm just keeping that up and keeping that up.
Yeah, so like I mean, I talked a little bit about it with you while you were here, but we have something here we call SWIFT, right? And that's like our body language protocol, right?
Mhm.
SWIFT is an acronym that stands for smile, work through, instigate success, right? And geez, foster friendships and be thankful, right? And it's basically like kind of some of the cues that we think are important for being a great coach or delivering a great training session. How important is it to always be coaching, to always be watching, cueing, and coaching? What are some of the, like, again, kind of taking some stuff from your talk too, is like, what are some of the keys to being a great coach on a day in and day out? Like, what does it take?
Yeah, well, I think I keep mine in small groups. I keep mine less than 10. Usually it's around 5 or 6 at all times. I think it's
So
just
like a
on.
6-to-1 coach ratio, smaller
Yeah.
groups. Yep.
Oh yeah, that's what I like. I mean, I got more like, I model of mine are, they're really training for something special. And I like
Yep.
with my coaching, that's just my business model right now. I'm not saying that won't change, but I think when you're on that point, everyone comes in, they see me coaching every single set, or hey, hit these warm up sets, and I'm gonna, make sure I see these sets over here. They know that my eyes are always on them. My athletes know to come over. Hey, I'm getting ready for this big set. I want you to watch this. Like they know that we're all in that together whenever they come in. If something's like, hey, coach, this happened at practice. I need to, quick pivot. Okay, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna work through this. Hey, how's this feel? Hey, this is good. Okay, then we're going to work up heavy on this. Let's push this hard over here. We're not doing it. So I think it's just me bringing it every single day. I think it's my athletes knowing that they're coming in to get coached. The parents know that. I just had a kid sign up recently, and I was trying to talk to the parent about, hey, I have a high expectation here. Hey, they're like, coach, we know. I'm like, no, but I had like, no, we talked to other parents. I'm like, okay, but when your kid comes in, like, coach, we've talked, we've done our research on you. We know what we're getting into when we're signing up with you. That's just, I'm like, okay, because I have certain rules and certain expectations here with everything. They go, we've already talked with our son. I said, they came in for a meet and greet. They said we didn't really need to do that. They knew they were getting into. But I think
Yeah.
it's just kind of my aura and my atmosphere that I personally create. Like, hey, we're in here with this, or the next day we're talking about, hey, did you see Megan's deadlift? Did you see so and so Shelby's 300-pound bench press? Or hey, we got another girl in here that's getting close to a 300-pound bench. Or hey, we've got another our eighth girl squatting over 400 pounds raw, weighing under 200-pound body weight. Hey, when my
Yeah.
athletes get back from meets, I think it's just we're always reminding each other, and hey, did you see this? Or hey, I want to hit a PR. Or hey, what the heck? Why is he progressing so much? What do I need to do?
Well, I think like, when you have a winning culture, right, where a certain standard for coaching is the standard. The standard is that we're going to hit PRs and we're going to train hard and we're going to get strong, right? And I think it's all part of your mentality. And that was always my mentality too. It's like, hey, man, the number one goal is we're going to get strong. If you get stronger in anything, something good's going to happen, whatever that might be, right? Whatever your sport is, I don't care what sport it is. There's always room to get stronger, right? And then you start developing winners, obviously outside the gym that are winning in their sports, and that starts to build like a snowball effect, right? It starts to become like a self-perpetuating wheel, right?
Yeah,
Where, the culture inside the box creates a culture outside the box that brings culture back to the box, right? And I say like you talked about that person who comes back and brings that energy up, right? We had a guy here for years, Mike Riley, who trained with us, who's now a chiropractor. He was in the NFL. He's a IBF pro bodybuilder at this point. He's in the natural, not natural, what do they call it? Classic physique
okay.
class, right? Big guy, jacked, like 265, right? He was a defensive end in college, right? Played in the NFL for like 5 years. And you always knew when Mike was in the room because I mean you could hear him at the front door. Let's go, baby! It's
Yeah,
time. Like he's coming. Who's ready to get jacked today? Like he'd be like he's fired up, right? And always smiling, always positive, always taking time to hang out with all the younger kids and like kind of pump them up and like, yo, you're dogging today, man. Let's go. Like he always fired it, and like you had no choice like he'd be yelling at you, turn the music up. I mean, you had no choice. The energy went up 6 notches when Mike came in the room, and I miss that man because like it is we have some great kids now, but like he was one of those rare breed type guys that was like he was on a next level. I always joked with Mike. I was like, dude, you're on another space time continuum. People have not figured out your space time energy yet. Like
yeah.
he was on a planet. So
I
um
think when we bring some of my high end lifters in, like because some of them, they're out of state and stuff. I got a junior lifter that's juniors 19 to 23. He
mhm.
squatted in single ply gear. He just hit a 881 squat.
Oh my
Benches
God.
over. Yeah, yeah. He's number one junior. He's going to
How
be in the
old is
open.
he?
He was 23 when he hit that. He just literally just turned 24 this past month.
Okay.
On his birthday, they actually came in to give him a surprise drug test.
Oh,
Literally, he's in there celebrating his birthday in the gym. Luckily, he was just getting warmed up. He had to go take a urine analysis and everything.
yeah.
Yeah, when I had these guys come in, it's funny. The last time I had a big kind of like HBT gathering, these guys were all training for Worlds. Jared, my 1,000-pound squatter, was in. Joe, all of a sudden, it was funny. It's like I told a few people my big guys were coming in. Then my other lifters wanted to come in from out of town. And then the local fire department, I told you, got a couple firemen I train. All of a sudden, the local fire department comes in. I got 6 or 7 fire department guys that are on duty that come in to see these guys because they want to see them bench, 660 and 670 is what they were kind of working up to. So it's all of a sudden I went from, a couple of my guys were coming in town to all of a sudden, like you said, that culture spreads. They want to be part of it. Hey, turn that music up. hey, someone's
Yeah.
coming in. Can I stop in with a couple firemen? I said, I guess, yeah, just come on in. Like, hey, we can stop in for like, 30 minutes or something. Like, all right, these guys will be hitting these weights at this time. And all of a sudden we had 20 high level lifters packed into the gym, just all training and feeding off each other. And it was
That
amazing.
sounds awesome to me. That sounds like a party. Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was.
yeah.
It really was, man. Yeah.
But I love those days in the gym, man. And I mean, that's what always attracted me to gym culture. And that's why, like, obviously, as as somebody who was kind of going down the route of high level academia, I was doing research science. I was getting my master's in, biology, molecular biology. I was thinking about PhD or med school and stuff like that. But and I had been training people the whole way through college since I was 19 years old. I just always kept circling back to the culture, right? And I don't think there's a better look. If you love training and you like business, right? There's no better entrepreneurial, like, yes, there's days when I want to burn this fucking place to the ground, like every business owner, right? Like,
Yep.
and set
As
and
you
there's a
said, getting punched in the face every day, man. Yep.
yeah, and there's
I
probably a
loved it.
few, and some days there's a few people I'd like to burn with it, right? But
Yeah.
but the reality is that, I mean, what better place is there to work? I mean, I'm wearing a hoodie, and a pair of Lululemon, joggers and sneakers every day, and that's like my fancy pants, right? Those are my nice. That's my nice outfit, right? You're hanging out in the gym with kids and like people that are bettering themselves, right? So it's inspiring just to watch from from a spectator standpoint, let alone to be able to have a role in coaching these people, right? And being part of their lives. And then you see the friendships that are made in your gym. There's people that could come from completely different walks of life, different sports, different schools, rival schools. A 50-year-old fireman could be sitting on a bench next to a 23-year-old power lifter and have a great conversation, great mutual respect for what they both do for our, in terms of giving up a lot of firemen, protecting our community, risking their lives. And this kid, like a lot of people can't even understand the amount of work that goes into squatting 881. If you've never squatted any type of big weight in your life, like I've squatted, closer to 600 pounds, never in that realm of weight, and the amount of energy, effort, and intensity and thought and planning and food and rest and sleep and recovery that went into that is unbelievable. It was my whole life, right? It was 25 years of fucking training every day, like it was the last day I was ever going to be alive, right? And snorting, snorting super pump and getting
Yeah.
insane.
Well, that was a big thing. I trained at Westside Barbell from 2001 to 2010, and I was just at
Oh wow.
Strong Style Gym MMA Center. It's Marcus Marinelli, who's an OG of Westside Barbell.
Yep.
He just trained Stipe Miocic. Stipe, honestly,
Yep.
unfortunate fight lost to John Jones, but Marcus and I were just chatting about that because he was an OG of Westside. He was the original one that got me invited to go down there. And part of the
Sick.
reason, yeah, I mean, in college, everything, I'm saving up all my money, staying on my friend's apartment couch, to go down and train at Ohio State University in Columbus with Westside. But that was the big part of the reason I knew I had a meet coming up, like you just said about the energy, the atmosphere. Besides everything, I was learning from Louis Simmons, which was a ton beyond articles and everything else that he wrote, learning from him directly, getting to work out with him directly, just going down there for the atmosphere. Like, hey, I got some big lifts coming up. I need to be around these guys. Not that I didn't have a good atmosphere where I was at. I needed an even better one. I needed 5 guys on me, eyes telling me you're doing this wrong, you're doing this right. And those were
Yep.
big things before all major meets. I was down in Westside more frequently, as much as I could. Off season depends on when I could get down there with traveling and everything, being in college. But I mean, I was down there, over 10 years. And as a coach, I was a frequent visitor. My last time there was about 2 months before he had passed away. I brought another lifter in, and Louis welcomed us in, and just the atmosphere, the aura of when you still step in there. I still got nervous going in there because I was in there to train, and Louis was going to help me and my lifter out. And I still got that nervousness. I was, 40 years old. I'm like, man, I still get nervous to come in here and train. I still better step my game
Hmm.
up. I was even, like you said, I was preparing myself to go there a month out.
Oh yeah.
And then Louis like,
Oh,
yeah,
every time we went out there, we were on an 8 week like West Side plan. Like we got to get jacked, we got to
just to
get
get
strong. We
ready.
can't
Yeah.
go out there and be a bunch of poons. Like I
Yeah.
want to be stuck squat with the high school kids again. God damn it.
Yeah. Well, that's what when I first went out there, I joked around Marcus Marinelli. Louis stuck me with, the female athletes, the female
Same.
lifters, and the 165 pounders. He made me go. I had to load Chuck Vogan pulls and Mike Rogeria's weights and, all that stuff. Then I could lift in the second group after they got done. And that took me a while until I started pulling my first 700. Then Louis really started taking some more initiative to me, personally started inviting me down, started working out with me
Yeah.
separately, really started helping me out because he saw how serious I was because he gets guys walking in his door all the time.
Sure. Sure.
And I
Sure. Yeah.
realize that now as I've gotten older. But yeah, I spent a lot of time from there. And I mean, the atmosphere again, I'm down there and like I don't know what it was. Like the South Wales rugby team they had an extended stay. They were down there for 30 days training. He had some Russian coaches that were in there. He had some Jamaican sprint coaches in there. He had some Ohio State athletes, track and field
Yeah.
athletes that were in there. So when
Well,
you
I
talk
was there last
about
time I was there, years ago when like, I was still training like a freak. This was like 2011, 2012 or so. There was a couple of track and field athletes from Russia, Bulgaria, the Ukraine or whatever.
yeah,
And I just remember there was this giant motherfucker. I mean, huge, giant fucking dude, right? 6'4", like, 285, 90 pounder, jumping on a 44-inch box with
hmm
70-pound dumbbells. And I'm like, and I remember we brought one of our trainers, Nick, out there with us, and Nick had never been there before. Nick was a smaller dude. He was a wrestler, like 160, like 155, 165, something like that, right? He was jacked, ripped, and strong, but his like max squat was like, 350, right?
yeah.
And we get there, and as soon as we walk in the door, this ogre is like shirt off, looked like he just like dusted himself off after coming. He's like a cave troll, just like came out the cave, right?
Got off the
And
Viking ship ready to
holy
conquer an island.
shit,
Yeah,
right, exactly. Ah, and he's jumping on this box, and Nick's like, he's got 70-pound dumbbells in his hands. I'm like, I fucking know, dude. I can see that. I was like, don't look at him. He might like swat your head off like a freaking polar bear,
yeah,
right? But Louis was like the nicest dude in the world. And we go to Toby. He's like, hey, Joe from Jersey, what's going on, man? How's the gym going? How's Varsity House, right? This, that, and the other, right? And he's like, who you got here? And I was like, this is Nick. And he's like, Nick, how much you squat? He's like, 325. You're gonna have to squat with the high school kids. He's like,
yeah.
Joe, where are we up to now? Where you squatting now? Right? I was like, right now, Lou, probably like 595, right? Right. He's like, he's still with the girls, right? My head trainer, you met Big Mike. He's like, Big Mike, how much you squat? And he's like 605. He's like, you got to go with the girls too, right? Right? Laura Phelps, Bianca Stone, and Amy Weisberger spent the next 3 hours beating the shit out of us and squatting the piss out of us and like and crushing us,
Yeah.
for 3 hours. So, I mean, how important do you think it is for young coaches? I think one thing that we talked a lot about and the kind of underlying theme of the underground, the whole purpose of the underground, and the reason why in the business of strength we do so many live events is because I only care about people who are willing to throw themselves in the fire and get off their asses and go to real events and really learn and do stuff like, again, like our sales event, not a training event, but a sales event. I think we scared a lot of people away because we made it clear that you will have to get up in front of the room and sell your business and live sell with everybody watching you. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes to get, if you want to get good at sales, at some point you got to sell shit, right? You got to actually do it. Right. So if you're coming to a sales summit, we're going to sell. If you're going to come to the underground, you're going to come to a training workshop, we're going to train a little bit, right? And I think some people shy away. How important do you think it is for young coaches to either A, compete, or B, go to things like training workshops, mentorships, whether it's, Boyle, Cressy, yourself, you like to come out there. Yeah. Jeremy's a good dude. If you're serious about lifting, right? I don't know, shoot him an email. Am I wrong, Jeremy, that if a kid that really wanted to learn training, who was really motivated and passionate, emailed you and was like, hey, man, you mind if I come out and shadow for 2 or 3 days? I'll pay for it myself. You don't have to pay for nothing. I just want to be a fly on the wall. Like, are you saying no? Probably not. I know I don't, right? I let people come here all the time. How important is that? You have to get out there.
It's huge. And it's a lost art. Mark Garrett, good friend of mine at Crown Point High School in Indiana. He was the National High School Strength Coach of the Year award winner. Mark and I have talked about that just with our interns we've had, with people who think they want to be strength coaches, they want to be, powerlifting coaches, stuff like that. They're not going and visiting. They're not, like you just said, they're going out with stuff. Like I'm still going out and visiting. Like I was at Strong Style MMA. I was watching how
Mm-hmm.
they were training their fighters. They have the greatest heavyweight of all time, Stipe Miocic, who has the most title defenses. I was talking with Marcus, and Marcus had me working with some of his fighters when I was actually out there. I went and saw a guy at Spire Academy, which is kind of like an IMG. It's in Geneva,
Mm-hmm.
Ohio. That
Mm-hmm.
guy out there works with some MMA guys, but he's also the director. I went out and saw him. They're like, man, you're 41 years old. You're still going out. I said, yeah, it's a great connection. He trains people a little bit differently than I do. That led to me, going back up to Marcus and seeing Marcus and I were chatting about fighting training and just learning about that. So I'm still traveling and training. People are just, they're
Same.
like amazed, but I think it's a lost art. I don't think enough of these interns that I've gotten from the local colleges do that. I'm like, hey, go. I literally have to tell them, go spend a day with my buddy Steve Barrick at University of Indianapolis. He runs a great Olympic weightlifting strength conditioning program. You need to learn this even better from him and see how he implements it differently than I do. And I think it's a lost art. Like you said, to call Louis up, and all of a sudden, I'm in Louis' gym, a week later, he goes, hey, come on up, man, whatever you need, brother. Like he just said to you, hey, come on in. It's
Yep.
a lost art.
I
People
called him out of the blue one day, 2005. I said, "Hey man, I'm opening up a gym. I'm a huge West Side guy. This is going to be a strength power athlete gym for football players, wrestlers, and track athletes. I'd love to come out for a couple weeks and train and learn." And he's like, "Come on out." And me and another Joe, two Joes from Jersey, go figure.
go figure,
Right,
yeah.
right, and that's what he's like. Hey, look at you, two Joes from Jersey. He's like, you look like a couple pizza eating Guidos. He says to
Yeah.
us, right? But he was and we slept in my truck, dude. We didn't have enough money for 2 weeks in a hotel, so
Yeah.
so we either had enough money for food the first week or hotel. So we chose food the first week and then hotel second week, and we figured out how we could had just enough to buy like groceries. And we were literally like, I was literally like getting hot water from the shop right, like from the shop right, coffee maker area. You know how they have like the tea out there? I was like, I would fill my thermos up with hot water and then go out to my truck and make like 3 packets of freaking oatmeal and shit in the truck because we were like broke. Louis
Yeah.
finds out we're sleeping in my truck and he's like, you come to my house. He's like, you can stay with me. I was like, really? He's like, you can't sleep in your truck. He's like, how are you supposed to lift? You know, he's like, you
Yeah.
guys are badass, right? So he invited us to a barbecue and wanted to come over, Doris and the dogs everywhere. It's like wild. But I think like, I don't know, part of it's fear. I think like, younger generation, maybe, and again, I'm not picking on, there's always a 10% that are savages, right? But like, younger generation, their ability to communicate is a little bit different than maybe me and you. Me and you had to go out and speak to people because we didn't grow up with cell phones in our pockets all day. And
Yep.
then just the ease of information. I mean, now, I mean, technically, if I want to learn anything about training, I can go on YouTube and I can learn a lot, right? And there's a lot of good information on there. The problem is there's a lot of shit information on there too, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
and 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 again, but that doesn't replace like, hey, look, I'll say this, you live 1,000 miles away, right? I never met you before in my life. You came out to Underground. We talked every day. As far as I'm concerned, we're friends and colleagues in the industry. You anytime you need anything, you call me. I'm picking up the phone because like, and that relationship came from coming to an event, breaking bread, having some good conversations, feel, feeling like, oh man, I met another person who's on the same wavelength as me in terms of his
Yep.
training ideology, his mentality, and your gym is very similar to how we started Varsity House. It's like, this is a great dude. Like, if Jeremy ever calls me for, business advice or whatever it is, I'm picking up the phone. That
Yep.
doesn't happen over the internet, right? Like, how excited a kid, just because you DM me a few times, that doesn't mean I'm taking a half a day out of my schedule to help you grow your business, right? Like, but if you're a kid who's like showing me that you've been here a few times and you're like, hey, coach, I've been to the gym a dozen times. I love everything you do. I've been to a couple of your workshops. I'm opening up my own gym finally. Is there any way that we can hop on a call? Yeah, let's do it, man. I want to see you grow. So I think that's a lost art. I think like also, what do you think about like competition? How important like is it for your coaches or like strength coaches to have to compete um in some strength aspect or sport to be a great coach? Is that a necessity or is that something that you think is like a plus if they have it?
No, it's a plus obviously, but I think it's, for me personally, it's a necessity. If you look at all my coaches, they were actually all former athletes of mine. They went to school for exercise science, got their certs, all that stuff. But I think it's huge. My interns, I even had a point where I was talking to colleges. I made my interns go out and compete. Who, I want to be a strength coach. I think I want to. All right. Well, I made them train for a meet. They're like, holy cow. I'm like, you see, and this is what you want to get into. This is just a local meet over here. So,
Right.
I've made several of my interns go out and like, no, you're going to train for me. And you're going to train with me. Hey, you're going to train with my athletes over here. Like, you need to learn what dynamic effort actually is. You need to learn what max effort actually is. You need to learn what an Olympic lifting program is with stuff. So I think it's huge. I think it is a lost art. I think people are afraid to do that. I think not enough people, they call themselves coaches, Joe. They don't have enough experience. Like when
Yeah.
I've had a couple people that, they travel internationally. My wrestler who was over there, my lifters who were going, Jared, very experienced lifter, the 1,000 pound squatter. We had to sit and we laid out a plan for him to go to Iceland. I'm like, hey, this is what's going to happen with your sleep. This is what's going to happen with your food. This is what's going to happen with your hydration and your weight when you're crossing over. You're in a airplane all the way over there. You have several stops. Everything. This is what's going to happen. So I need you over there this amount of days beforehand. And had I not had that experience, you can read all you want, like you said. It's different when I can speak to him from experience, and he goes, hey,
Hmm.
this happened. I did get a little dehydrated. I listened to what you said. Hey, I got this back in order. Hey, my weight fluctuated a little bit. I got this
Sure.
back down. Hey, what should I do on this part? I'd increase in salt take for a little bit. And then when it came to meet day, he goes, hey, all this came good. He goes, I felt what I wanted to hear from him, Joe, was I felt good on meet day. I felt recovered. I felt rested. I
Yeah.
felt right. He goes, I put 135 on my back. I was ready to go. I knew it was going to be a good day.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, I still I value in-person education today even more than I did back then because now because obviously age and wisdom brings you perspective, right? And like if there's any regrets that I have on the business side of my journey, it's that I didn't dive down the mentoring rabbit hole with a business coach the same way I did with training coaches back in the day too. And I think like if I would have married those things up a little sooner, where I was going to, the West Side's the elites. Like I went, I was at one of the first mentorships at Athletes Performance. I did all of Cressy's mentorships back in the day when he did like real like 4 or 5 day mentorships that were like his shoulder care mentorship and stuff like that. Like we're
Mhm.
talking, obviously '07, '08, '09, right?
Yeah.
I flew out to Athletes Performance, with Mark Verstegen, with $0, like literally $50 to my name for an entire week to be out there. I spent every dollar on the workshop. I remember driving to Ohio State. I emailed the Olympic coach there. There was the Olympic. He was training the swim, track, and I think volleyball teams out there years ago. I remember driving out there and meeting up with him and going and spending a day at Ohio State,
Yep.
and just anywhere, like my local colleges, right? I'm trying to set up a couple visits right now with some of my collegiate strength coaches, friends of mine. Like, I want to go see some of these. I'm going to South Carolina in a couple weeks, and like, I'm going to stop off at the University of South Carolina and sit in on a training session. Like, I want to see what that shit looks like, right? And
Yeah.
it's always it's a connection to other people, but again, it's inspiration, right? There's so much to learn. There's so much nuance in forget the X's and O's in the game of coaching and the game and I'm very interested in human psychology and sociology. And some of the best leaders that I've ever met are professional coaches, right? Like whether it's a sport coach or the head strength and conditioning coach. There's some of those coaches out there that are just the way that they carry themselves, the way that they, infect a room with energy when they walk in, the way in which they organize training and organize, a group of could be 50 kids, right?
Yeah.
There's so much to be learned from on the business side, right? How you speak to people, how you engage people is generally their perception of you, right? So again, you could take X's and O's are part of it, but when I go to meet these people, it's like I'm going to meet a great person who has, like if you're the head strength and conditioning coach at a huge school, you've put a tremendous amount of work into that, right? And at a big school, there's a lot of politics, so it's
Yep.
not just about being the best X's and O's guy. It's about being a leader, having a smart business head, knowing knowing what recruiting and NIL looks like in today's sport market, and how to really, you know, get those kids to buy in and stuff like that. So there's so much to it that I get fired up with that stuff.
Yeah, like you just said, I got two things. I got one, the head swim coach I work with at Purdue University, one of my good friends.
Mm.
He's got a Cinderella story from starting from a youth swim coach when I first met him to working his way up to the a Big Ten University head swim
Oh
and dive
shit.
coach now. Yeah, known him for over 15 years. But him and I, like, I'm going to one of the wrestling matches coming up, and then him and I are going into the strength room afterwards, and we're going to talk about his program, what he's got going on, what he wants to change, modify. Him and I meet several times a year, And just here example, I'm going to Purdue for this, but I'm working with this guy. I got two kids
Yeah.
wrestling right now at the University of Iowa, and so I help them online with their training. So they're still doing a lot of their own training there, but I'm allowed to help out. We're allowed to fill in the spaces, help them out. It's a good atmosphere and a good understanding at University of Iowa wrestling. When they're ranked second in the nation right now, but when I'm
Yeah.
going out there, I told them, I said, hey, I talked to my two kids that are wrestling. I said, hey, I need you to hook me up with the strength coach. I don't know if the wrestling coaches might be busy, but he goes, hey, coach, we talked to them and we can get you in this day, and you come in and talk with the guy and everything. So even though, I'm going out there to see the boys wrestle, I'm going out there, I'm spending time with them. I'm going to be in the strength room with that coach. I'm going to be talking about his program, what he's doing differently, how he's training his guys. If I can meet the wrestling coaches, that's going to be even beneficial. But everything, like you just said, every travel thing, I'm looking for, hey, what's available over there? What's the strength program over here? Hey, who's available that I might be able to talk, meet? And like you said, how you and I met, who's this great guy over here on this side? I just had to
Hmm.
talk with my assistant coach. I have him training some youth athletes right now, some elementary kids. And again, when those kids get into that car, what's the first thing mom and dad ask them? Did you have fun? Did you have a good time? So even though
Yes.
I told them you're running a great developmentally appropriate program, those kids still get in. And the first thing the parents, they're not going to ask them, was this kinesiology appropriate?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
this, what did you do on this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did they axial load your spine?
Yeah.
No, they're
Yeah.
going to ask, did
Yeah.
you have fun? Did you
Yeah,
have a good time?
exactly. Yeah, they have
So I need,
Was that Sorinex or Elite FTS equipment in there? Because we only want to work out on the best stuff. It's like nobody gives a shit about any of that crap.
yeah. But those kids got into that car and they talked to their parents, and then the parents like, I don't know what your assistant did, but my kids have been asking, when can we go back? Is it Wednesday yet? Is it training day yet?
That's
So I told
awesome.
them, you got to mix, make sure it's appropriate. But those kids have got to say that, hey, we had a fun, we had a good time training. Hey, it was fun in there. Like those kids were working their butts off. Parents came in and watched for a little bit. But again, I've had to have a talk with him, like you said, about organizing, dealing with people. It's way more than sets and reps when you actually get into business and dealing with stuff.
Oh yeah. And look, here's the one disadvantage. The advantage we have in the private sector is like, we're not constrained by a larger organization and all the red tape and BS, right?
Yep.
The drawback on the private sector side is that nobody has to train with us, right? Nobody has to be a client of ours, right? If Jeremy's not cool, I don't care how great of a coach you are. If you, like you said, if you're not cool and those kids don't like you, they're not training with you and they ain't
Yep.
spending a penny in your business, right? So
Yep.
there is this motivation, inspiration. It's part like you're part motivational speaker, you're part psychiatrist, right? To these
Yeah.
kids, psychologists.
Big
You're
part of
oh
psychiatrists.
oh for
Yeah.
sure. You're
Yeah.
part entertainment, right? It's you're part entertainment. You're like a freaking entertainer, right? And then obviously once you've gotten those things and you've built some trust, and these kids are like, oh, Coach Hartman's really cool, man. He's a nice guy, right? I really like him. Then they'll do shit for you, right? And
Yeah.
then it's like then we could actually train because
Yep.
now that kid will run through a wall for you because you prove that you're a good dude and you care and you listen to them and you have something, like it's not just about another hardo coach that dad told you you had to go to.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny. We're talking about people and investing our time and everything. I just got off the phone yesterday. I was on a 2 hour conversation with Lee Kemp. He was
Mm,
a three-time NCAA champion wrestler, University of Wisconsin. He was a three-time world champion. The only reason he never won the Olympics, unfortunately, was 1980 when I got boycotted. And him and I were chatting about stuff, and we were talking about a strength conditioning program. It was obviously one of the big things I want to talk to Lee about. He's from, honestly, the town next to mine where I grew up,
hmm
and we got connected through a mutual friend. But anyway, I was talking about that, and he said, he goes, my best coach ever was Dan Gable, and that's synonymous with wrestling. But I said, what, you always hear the legends of Dan Gable. He goes, what you just said, he pushed wrestlers to a whole nother level that he didn't even think he could go to. But what you just said is Dan had a relationship with those guys, so he could do that.
Yes.
But I asked him, he goes, that was the hardest training I ever did. He goes, there were times Lee joked around. He goes, I thought he was trying to kill me.
Yeah.
When he was at the Olympic Center training with
I'm
him
sure.
2, 3 times a day, waking him up at different hours, messing with him mentally. But he goes, we had so much respect because, obviously the guys were getting results. But he goes, it was just, he was such a good human being that he was still there to, when practice was over, hey, what do you need? He was just had so much inspiration because he could push those guys to that level. And he said the first year was a little hard buy-in. And he said only 2 guys medaled at the Worlds when Gable coached them. But the next year, 7 guys from that team all medaled at the World Championships. And I
Jeez.
said, what was the big difference? He goes, we all bought in to what Gable was doing. And he goes, when I went to the University of Iowa and wrestled, he goes, those guys were animals and he pushed them beyond their limits, took them right to the edge. But he goes, he had a relationship with those guys that
Yes.
he could do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's even true in business, right? Like again, like I look at like how we started grassroots, me and Dan, we brought in Big Mike. Big Mike's been with me for 15 years. Adam's been with me for over 10 years. For a very long time, it was just me, Mike, Dan, and Adam training all the time, right? And like I look at the relationship that we have, that I have with those guys. Obviously, Dan, my business partner, he's like family, he's like my brother.
Yeah.
But so I mean, so are Mike and Adam. I love those guys. They're close personal friends. I have them and their families over for dinner regularly. Like I care about them, right? And I'm not saying that I don't love my younger employees, which it just the time is different. I haven't built the relationship. If I Mike and Adam will run through a wall, they have a different level of respect and a different level of giddy up when it comes to our business because they were there when I was there on the floor 50, 60 hours a week, killing ourselves. So we built a different relationship, right? Where like now, some of the younger people that are training here with me, and it's not their any fault of their own, but they've never ever seen me train anybody. Like, they've never seen that. So they don't understand that there was 20 years of, you know, 50,000 hours of coaching before, Joe said that, hey, this business thing has gotten so big that like if I don't stop coaching, we're gonna nosedive, right? And it was like, that was a big. We were struggling for a bit, and that wasn't
Mhm.
that long ago. And it was like we were kind of flatlined. And it's like, well, yeah, you got two owners and all the management team on the gym floor 40 hours a week. Like, you just like who's running the business? And it's like, I don't know. That's a good point. That's a good point. I didn't think of that. So I think like, that relationship is everything. I look at some of the old clients that we have here, the people that have stuck around the longest, you just have you build trust and rapport that you can't mimic in a short vacuum of time. So, and like someone like Dan or like yourself, or like what I see now with like our young performance coach Alex, and the time that she's investing in the young female athlete population that we have here, and she's really building this unbelievable like culture, and we've doubled our female athlete population since she took over the program about a
Nice.
year and a half ago. And it's not by chance. It's because, they see her as a mentor. She was a high level collegiate athlete. She trains like an animal too still, right? She's, if she's got athletes that want to be here at 4:35, 6 o'clock on a Friday, she's here. Right. Where like a lot of people are like, I'm getting the hell out of here. It's Friday night. I want to go out. Right. She's like, oh, I got a couple kids there. I'm here last week. She's like, oh, I got a couple kids coming to play some spike ball. I was like, what? It's like, yeah, we're just gonna hang out. I got like 10 kids coming to hang out and play some spike ball. I was like, that's how you get it done, man. That's the
Yep.
way, and as like the OG gym dad, it's nice to see somebody taking that initiative as an employee and really investing their time into those kids, because those kids will remember that more than anything. They're not going to remember the rep sets, the things like that. They're going to remember, hey, you remember, hey, coach, remember when we used to play spike ball like once a month, every Friday? We would get the kids together and play spike ball. I'll never forget that. That was the best, man. We used to, you made training so much fun, right? And we had jailhouse Fridays here. We just murdered kids on Fridays.
That's awesome.
Murdered kids.
Yeah.
But we take them out. We take kids. We used to take kids out to eat. We used to there's this Mongolian barbecue down the road. It's like an all you can eat buffet joint.
Yep.
It's like it was at the time when we opened this place like 10 years ago, it was like $10 a kid. So we take
Yeah.
like 25 kids down there for $250. And the lady'd be like, oh no, she'd see us coming, like, you know, 6'5", 290-pound lineman getting out of the car. She's like, shit, she needed a sign that says $20 today, like I gotta
Yeah.
double the rate. you
That's what
know.
that's what I tell you. That's what Marcus Marinelli, Stipe Miocic's coach at Strong Style MMA. When him and I were chatting just this past week when I was in Cleveland, Ohio, Marcus said that was a big thing that he took away from Westside was the whole family thing. No matter how much they got on each other, Friday night was dinner night. The breakfasts were still available with stuff, and that's what Marcus
Yeah.
values more than anything. That's the same thing on my end. Like you've always tried to create this, especially like you said, the people that have been around me for 10+ years, my
Yep.
lifters, my athletes, like it's nothing but a big family thing here, and I treat that. And that's the way everybody kind of talks about, no matter what. Like I have people that they're retired from athletics, and I got some swimmers that swam at Purdue, and they still come back, and they're just here to work out and train, and just they love being around it. They love the atmosphere. They rip on each other, but then in the end, they're friends about it. Hey, I'll see you tomorrow. Hey, Thursday, you come to this time. All right, I'll be up here at this time too. So I think
Here's
that's
a number. Here's a
thing.
number for you, and I hope Tom doesn't get mad at me for telling everybody this. But like when I was at a West Side a couple weeks ago, right? Dan and I had gone out there, and Tom told me, he's like, and we were just chatting a lot about the old times and Louis, and he's, I think Tom's a great guy, and he's got, and Mac out there. I don't know if you know Mac, but Mac's a great guy. Mac's brother, Mac McParland, Mac's brother. CJ is the strength coach at Temple, right? We have a couple Temple athletes that train with us. So, they're doing some great stuff there now as in the post Louis era of West Side, right? And
Mhm.
the gym that they built out next to the old like gym is incredible, like
Yeah.
beautiful. They built something special there. But Mac told, I mean, not Mac, Tom told me that Louis' bill just for Bob Evans was about 55,000 a year just for Bob Evans every
Yeah.
year. And he never and he paid it every time. And even when I went out, every single time I went out there, if we went to Bob, he just picked up the bill. He never asked for a penny, never said nothing.
No,
And I think
Louis
that's
talked about that. Yeah.
yeah, I think that that speaks to, just the type. He's like, yo, if these people don't believe in me and they don't believe in each other, nobody squatting 1,000 pounds. Like, how are you going to put 1,000 pounds on your bar and trust your crew if we can't go out and have breakfast a couple days a week together? So, and it was really a commitment thing because the guys who showed up religiously to the breakfast, to the dinners, they were on time for the training sessions. Those were generally the guys that made the best strides, right? They made the best gains because they were bought in all the way, right? And they were drinking the Kool-Aid, if you will.
Yeah. Well, it was funny that the last time I told you I was out there 2 months before he passed away, I brought my lifter Shelby Miles out. Shelby's my first 500-pound puller, 198, pulled 501 on a stiff bar. My first 300-pound bencher for a female, and she squats 457 raw too.
Oh my God,
She's
bro.
won everything from high school nationals, college nationals.
Holy
We
smokes.
just we're just 7-1 the Open. Yeah, that's the only thing we're working on. But it was her first time out there, and Louis talked to her, privately. He said, "Hey," he goes, "you need to come back down again." He goes, "There's a couple things I want to work on, with you." And he goes, "Come back down." He goes, "I'll get you a hotel for a couple nights." He goes, "I'll take care of breakfast and dinner." And Shelby looked at me, after Louis kind of walked away. He had to get going. He was there for a couple hours with us in the morning. He's going to go train some track athletes. And she goes, "What's his deal?" I said, "Nothing." She goes, "Well, what's he want in return from this?" I go, "Nothing." She goes, "He's offering me a hotel for a couple nights. Said he'll come down and work on my squat. I just need to fix a few things. He wants to work with me some more. He's going to take care of meals too." She goes, "Well," I'm like, "The guy just loves strength. The guy sees the talent that I've seen in you since I've had you." I said, "He wants to work with you. He doesn't care about money. He's got enough deals with Rogue Fitness and Westside and everything else that he's got out there." I say he just wants to see, especially at this age, people getting stronger, getting better. So it's just that's the way he was, man.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. That's great. I love it. Like I said, I obviously I'm biased because I'm an OG, washed up meathead gym guy my whole life. I found my way to my first barbell club when I was 14 years old. And as cliche as it sounds, the rest is history, man. Bulldog Gym, Pompton Plains, New Jersey. Jeff Futz and his brother and his dad ran this underground garage gym that literally inspired me. And Jeff and his brother, Jeff does construction. I think his brother's a cop. Brother was a Port Authority cop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way that they listen to this shit, but those guys inspired the hell out of me. And that gym was awesome. And that place was like that OG barbell, like dudes in ripped up jeans and combat boots training, like,
Yeah.
like snorting nose torque at 8 o'clock at night because they just worked a 10, 11 hour shift doing construction and shit.
Yeah.
And had like a Jeff, he was just a great dude. And I'll say this jokingly, but at 15 years old, I was like, if these fucking dipshits can run a gym, then I definitely can do this.
Yeah.
I was like, if these, I'll use a Jersey term, if these manooks can freaking can run a gym, then I got this shit in the bag, baby.
Yeah.
But I was hooked on that culture, and it seems like you got something really special out there. I got to get my butt out of plane and come out to Indiana. Adam's whole family's from Indiana, so one day we gotta organize a road trip and come out there and get a big lift in and get some food and chill and hang out, man.
Definitely, man. Definitely. That's the best stuff, especially since we connected. I mean, we're all on the same wavelength, at Underground Strength Con. So this is definitely a long lasting relationship, man, for sure.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time, Jeremy. Tell everybody if people want to get in touch with you and want to learn more about Hartman Performance and what you're doing, where's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, just look up Hartman Performance Training on any social media. Email me, hartmanpt1@gmail.com. Send me a DM, send me an email, whatever you want. I'll get back to you one way or another, and we'll definitely talk some strength.
Jeremy Hartman, you're a legend, brother. You're training some of the best athletes in the world, building a culture that'll last, create legacy. Thanks again. And this is the business of strength. We'll see you next time.
All right, Joe. Thanks, man. Appreciate all your help, brother.